Hey, we got a late start. Thanks for sticking around. This is Triple T, Talk Time with TJ, number 32 on August 9th, 2022. My name is TJ Zebill. I consider myself a professional problem solver, among many other things. And yeah, we got a little bit of a late start, so I'm going to have to repost this recording onto my Facebook channel later for those of you that showed up trying to find it, the live feed there. Sorry about that. There are days I love technology, and then there's the rest of the year. And with all of that said, here we are. Before I get started, I want to put a huge thank you and shout out to Lenora for covering for me last week while I was in the air flying home from Vegas for Hypnothoughts Live number 10. We'll be talking a little bit about that later. But now that we got this up and rolling, if this is your first time watching the recording, please hit the subscribe button and the bell and all the good stuff that everybody talks about on their YouTube channel. Help me out a little bit. Share this with your friends, invite them. This is open forum. You don't have to have any credentials other than the ability to fog a mirror to join us. I like to keep it, really sophisticated that way. So anything anybody want to share from the week or from last week's recording or session or all the above before we dive into Planet TJ? You'll catch me looking every now and then. Here in Dallas, Fort Worth, we are finally getting some rain and some thunder. So, yay, plants will be happy, much, much, much needed. So back to, squirrel. Disclaimer for those of you who are watching for the first time, I chase a lot of squirrels. I've got an entire forest full of them around here. So we're in the middle of something and all of a sudden I'm like, squirrel. That means I caught one. Back to anything that you guys want to share from the week or questions, stuff you want to add before we get going, or the second hour is open platform, open mic, and we can address it then if you would like. All right. Well,
that's what I'm saving mine for.
All right. Well, if you saw my Facebook post, today's topics may sound a little dark or whatever, but there's place for those too. And the first question is are bad days okay? I see lots of heads bobbing. Yes. I'll admit, yesterday I had a feces day and caught myself early on it. And of course, with all the stuff that I teach and all the people that I work with and all the advice I give on those type of days, I knew that I could have worked through it, pulled myself out of it. And as the day wore on, I don't know if I could even call it surprisingly, I kind of found myself almost enjoying it. Kind of like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's feel it. Let's burn up some of the energy with it. Hey, Elijah. And when I have those days, I find myself, I kind of go MIA. I just close in and keep to myself. And I find that it really puts hey Francine, it really puts my mind into a different thought process. It's not that I've stopped thinking. I just find myself analyzing stuff through different angles with different energy. And that's where I got to, I said to myself, self, that's how I know I'm talking to myself. Self, what are we noticing today? And even walking around the property, I noticed different things around the property, different projects, and where I had prioritized them when I was in a good mood, and how I'm looking at them when I'm in the not so good mood. With that angle, that analysis, it also made me realize that dealing with clientele that are suffering anxiety, depression, things of that nature, the intensity at which they're looking at their world from that different angle can sometimes make it hard for them to understand how our point of view, for those of us that have learned to see the world through happier lenses, shall we say. And not even so much the rose-colored glasses lenses where, everything's good, but the ability to go, my life's pretty darn good, and obviously it can always be worse. Always. Which circles me back to, what's your input on this idea of, are bad days good? And did any ideas or stories pop up while I was describing that? Anybody want to share? Bueller. Lenora.
I'll share. When I have not so good days, I find that there's definitely magnitude in them, and depending on how much momentum they really do have. And, like even my husband will point stuff out, and I have to remind myself, and he'll try and reframe things for me and help me along. But there are times where it's just like, you know what? I'm human, and you just see things differently, but it's also helpful because then you appreciate when you're in a better mood that much more. And you're like, okay, well, the last time this happened, what did I do? What really helped? And you sometimes really need to work hard at shifting that momentum. That's what I find.
Yeah, my wife didn't see me all day, which is the good and bad thing about having a shop that's disconnected from the house. Like, yeah, I'm having one of those days. I'm going to be in the shop. Holly, you had your hand up?
Oh, something just kind of popped up into my head when you were talking about that. That the last really bad day that I had is the reason I'm where I am today. And that was what I had to go through to, as they say, hurt enough or whatever to get the motivation to change. Because if life had never sucked, I would have just settled for what I had.
You just reminded me of the lady I helped about a month ago now, who contacted the clinic, and they asked if I would do an emergency session on a Friday because she was suicidal. And she told me that, she was sitting in her car and had it all figured out and had even written the suicide note. And I said, awesome, cool. How cool is that? And of course she's like, did you hear me right? I mean, we're both speaking English, I'm pretty sure. Really? And I said, the reason I'm so happy for that is because you are on online with me right now? And do you think you could go any farther down? Or have you hit rock bottom and realized it? And she goes, this is rock bottom. And I said, what direction is left? Up. I said, you've survived everything life has ever thrown at you. Up to the point of writing that note, you've survived it. What are you going to do from here on out? And that's when I jumped into my protocols of, queen of your kingdom and who gets to be in your who gets to be in your tribe and live like you were dying. I said, basically, that note right there, I want you to time and date stamp it, because that is the time that the old you died. And from here on out, you don't have to take feces from anybody. Those of you that know me, I taught her this. And when I did that, she contacted me a week later because I told her I wanted to hear how she was doing. And she said, this changed everything. Because that simple gesture, and for those of you that are on the recording don't know what this means, that's where you're like, you don't like me? Look, I have no stuff to give. And you can put in the adult equivalent in there. Yep, look at that, none. My last comment offended you. It wasn't intentional, and it was pretty like fifth grade, and that's what set you off? Well, look, sorry, I'm all out, none to give you. And sometimes it still amazes me how something that small and that simple can be the anchor that we can carry along with us every day. I did it just the other day. Somebody, what was it? I don't know. It was in Vegas, and somebody didn't like something, and it got to me for about 30 seconds until I went, wait a minute. Well, that fixed that. Next. So, I know that was a funny little squirrel that jumped in and did a little swirly loo, and now I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. Where am I? Where are we?
Bad days, and are they okay?
Yeah.
Squirrel is kicked in again.
Where wouldn't you be if you weren't here?
I would be there.
No. Listen to the question.
Oh.
I didn't ask where you would be.
Okay.
Where wouldn't you be?
Where wouldn't
if
I
you
be?
weren't here?
There.
Where wouldn't you be if you weren't here? And when wouldn't you be if you weren't now? That's right.
Yes, I'll drink to that. Little tea to send to you here in the UK.
Is the where wouldn't you be if you weren't here? Answer here.
You tell me. What is the answer? Where wouldn't you be?
And if it's neither here
Wouldn't be
nor
here.
there,
It's where wouldn't you be if you weren't here?
The mind ninja.
all right.
We were talking about bad days too, and it seems like since the convention and everything that's going on, from that to car problems to COVID, all within a week. And people said, "Oh, I feel sorry for you." And I said, "Why? It's just an adventure." So it's, where do I want to put my focus?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where, when I deal with people with chronic depression and things like that, there's a number of protocols that I put in place, because I found that it's not one of those one size fits all type of fix. They've planted enough weeds in enough locations in their garden that you help them pull this weed out, and then they turn around and there's three behind them that they're like, "Oh, I remember those. Look at those terrible weeds that I've grown." And you really have to almost do a 360 defense line for them, so they can start building that muscle of understanding that, yes, there's always bad stuff, but yes, there's always good stuff. And back to what I say all the time, nothing means anything until you give it a label. And the reason I wanted to bring this up and be transparent about it is, I've got a lot of people that hang around me enough. Even my wife was surprised yesterday or last night when I came in, and I was just kind of in my own little funk. And it took her a little bit to notice, and all of a sudden she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm just having a day." And it caught her so off guard, because I don't let people see me have bad days. Luckily, because I don't like seeing myself have bad days if I can control it, and I found that I'm pretty good at controlling it. But it took me a while to figure out how to do that. Just like managing people around you, energy vampires and things of that nature. There are a couple of different ways of dealing with them. One, though, you have to be able first to recognize them. And that takes a little bit of practice, because some of them are sneaky. Yeah. Yeah, they are Dracula in, what's that?
You have to be first willing to see things as they are before you can change them.
Yes. And also not to get wound up in the ones that have done that to you and making you fearful of who you might meet in the future. Because there are plenty of people on this planet that I have no problems meeting people. I enjoy it. Every person I meet is they start the slate clean. They're the friends I haven't met yet. But with learning, the trifecta, Echo Talk, 3 Magic Questions, Values and Criteria, I've gotten pretty good at uncovering the vampires. Doesn't take long, and you're like, I seem to recognize that costume you're wearing. You know what? I think I'm good. I don't think my kingdom needs another one like you, so off with thyself. Go find some other poor soul, hopefully nobody that I know. And while you're at it, change your ways. Any input on that? Any stories, questions, ahas?
Well, when you were talking about that, an energy vampire came to mind that was just sucking the life out of me. And I tried to do that. And it was like, no, I'm going to latch onto you. And I had to make a real effort to get rid of that.
Yes. And it also takes a bit to learn not only the defenses against it, but you have to understand how they work to be able to counteract them. One of the best things that I learned regarding that from Dr. David Snyder was if you can get good at eliciting values and criteria, the easiest way to get rid of a person is to find out their values and criteria and violate them. Woo! You just got to be careful though, because
I can give you also a general shortcut. Nobody likes to be told that they're wrong. So any opinion that they have, you could tell them that they're wrong, and they could not be more wrong if they tried. And they will soon get fed up with you and leave. It's one of the fastest ways to break rapport, is just to tell people that they're wrong and
Yep.
correct.
Yes, Francine.
Still, even if it's the fastest way, you still have to be incredibly careful because sometimes things can explode in your face. I'm talking by experience.
Yes, I played that game as well. Okay. Anybody else?
You're all wrong. That's it.
I'm offended.
Oh, well, you're wrong for being offended too.
See, so if someone tells you you're wrong, while we're here, we might as well give you the antidote to it as well. If someone tells you you're wrong, then you say, well, that's certainly your opinion, isn't it?
Yes. And I've been told I'm wrong before.
The thing is, I openly am like, oh, well, I wouldn't be surprised. I've been wrong many times, actually. I wouldn't have got this far had I not been wrong.
Yes. How many times did Edison get the light bulb wrong? He didn't.
Well,
he just found 1,000 ways that it didn't work.
You heard the story about the letter the school sent to his mom? Because he was homeschooled, right?
Uh-huh.
So when he was fairly young, I don't know, 12 or maybe around there, plus 12 plus or minus 2 years, let's say, a teacher gave him a note. Said, could you give this to your mom, please? And he took it home, and his mom opens the letter and she reads it and she starts crying. And he's like, Mom, what does it say? And it says, Dear Miss Edison, your son is an absolute genius, and we do not have the facilities to teach such a gifted child in our school. Please take whatever measures you need to make sure that he gets access to everything he needs so that he can reach his full potential, as we would be selling him short if he was to continue to study at our institution. After his mom died, he was going through her stuff and he found the letter, and he opened it up and he read it, and it was an expulsion letter, and they expelled him. And she read the incorrect thing, made it up on the spot to kind of hypnotize him into believing into his own potential, and wouldn't let him see that people thought less of him. That's a true story.
I'm trying to remember. There was another story like that about a CEO, top CEO, and yeah, he was having troubles in school, took his SATs, and the SATs came back and said, bing, brilliant. And all of a sudden, bam, he straight up. And I don't remember how many years later it was, but they came out with the realization that there were 2 years where the SAT grading had made major mistakes, and when they corrected them, yeah, he was not making the grade. So tells you how much power there is in affirming, especially the youths, and not degrading them for being a fish that can't climb a tree like a monkey. I actually had a lady in the grocery store that I had talked about this in one of the other triple T's, where because with the Chinese facial reading classes that I've taken, it's one of those technologies. Once you turn it on, there is no shutting that stuff off, no way, no how. And I'll see people with exceptional features. And one happened to be this teenage girl. And we're standing in checkout, and I looked at her mom and I said, "Could I ask you probably the craziest question you've heard all day?" She's like, "Okay." I said, "Your daughter, is she really good at a lot of different things?" And her mom was like, "Yeah." Daughter's looking at me like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I study and teach Chinese facial reading, and with her markings and stuff." I said, "I bet she's really good at a lot of different things, and she's a real quick thinker, isn't she?" And mom's like, "Yeah, we're having troubles in school because they just don't know what to do with her." And I said, "Oh, judging her like a fish that can't climb a tree like a monkey?" And her mom, it's like, "Yeah." I said, "Don't worry about her grades, because as soon as she gets out of school where they don't understand her, and she can get into the stuff that she's passionate about, she will explode in the best of ways." And mom teared up, and I'm like, "I'm sorry." She goes, "I've been trying to find somebody that understands that for years. You're the first one that's ever said that to me." I was like, "Thank you, Chinese facial reading." I said, here's a book that you can look this stuff up, and here's my card. And, sometimes just a few minutes of sharing something with people out in public. I still don't know what impact I had, but those 5 minutes impacted me. So that was worth it. Great place to practice that kind of stuff, because if you never see them again, it only cost you a couple minutes.
Well, since you brought up Chinese face reading, what's your favorite feature to look for that you pick up?
Hairline is a really easy one for me. Of course, facial breakdown. There are certain ones that I notice that I don't approach. Like the women with very metal or very lots of fire. I'm like, could be a good day, could be a not so good day, and I don't want to gamble.
I love to point out joy lines in women.
Yes, joy lines, purpose lines.
Yeah, point out the good stuff, and now the bad stuff that they don't like about them doesn't seem as bad.
Yeah, I never point out the bad stuff. That's later on. If you want to come to me and you need some work, I can be like, yeah, I can see your sorrow lines. You got a little bit of a little patience issue there. Maybe you're a little more into needing some, lots of attention. Yeah, we don't go there. But yeah, I've had a lot of interesting conversations out in public uh, because of that. It's kind of fun. It's also a really good way to practice approaching strangers because it's interesting enough, it's offhanded enough that you they're not expecting it, and it's an easy way to leave them better off than you met them. And that's always been one of my favorite reasons to do it anyway. And there's that. Anybody else want to comment on that before we do a gear shifty shift?
I always love hearing about Chinese facial reading. So anytime that's useful or anybody wants to add, that's always useful for me. So.
Yeah. I am so grateful for Lillian Pearl Bridges, rest her soul. I was so bummed when I heard that she passed. The amount of knowledge in that, yeah, she passed last year. Broke my heart. The amount of knowledge and information that she had and shared. Wow, what a blessing, what a dent in the universe. Holy cow. I could only wish that I could dent the universe 20th as much as she does. So, as long as we're, yes, Francine.
I had my first class of face reading in the early 90s. And the more you practice it, the more you get kind of in tune with it as well. And then when I did some of Lillian, I got her book. And when I do some of hers, it's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of common knowledge.
Yep.
So I found it was much easier to assimilate once you're really looking at these kind of things. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's funny. I've told this story a number of times. My mother was living with my wife. I came out to visit my wife and I and stayed for a couple months. And Dr. David had a face reading class coming up. And I said, all right, Mom, you're taking the class. And she's like, oh no, we got to leave the camera off. And I don't want to do the exercises and da 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 da. 3/4 of the way through the first day, total rock star. And just absolutely loving it, and like, oh, where are the photo albums of the family? Oh my goodness! And she's opening them. Oh, I'm looking. Oh, da. And I still, ask her if she's having fun noticing it because I bought her one of Lillian's books, and yeah, once that switch is turned on, there is no shutting it off. That's why I don't mind going to when I'm flying. I have no problem showing up 3-4 hours early for my flight. Don't care. I am not in my office and I'm not in my shop. I am forced to sit down, relax, and watch people in their natural environment, which is great practice. And you get to see everybody. And like Chet pointed out, you get to see everything, and you can decide what you want to point out. And I've seen some people that even Ray Charles could see they were having a not so good day, and it's a super easy way to, just out of curiosity, can I ask you a crazy question? Da 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 da, and you lead right into it and leave them smiling. So that was a squirrel we weren't ready for. This is why I say, got a whole woods full of squirrels, and they run all over the place. The next one, one of our colleagues, we're just going to send out good energies to. His mother is in end of days, and we were chatting a bit, and it made me want to bring up a few things especially for those of us, we're not getting out of this game alive. Neither are our friends or family or all the above. So I shared a few things with him, and one of them was that I wanted him to go and stop looking at the meat suit that his mom is in. I said, your mom is not that failing meat suit. She's not the body, she's the spirit that's inside of that suit. When you go spend time with her, forget about the body that's laying there and spend as much quality time as you can with the spirit while it's still here in the physical form, because it will never leave in the spiritual form. Those of us who do the kind of work that we do have proven it many times that, with 3-chair therapy and the hologram deck, the protocol that I do, we're always in touch with family, generations and generations of family sometimes. And no, my mic didn't break. That was a little flashback. I remember when I went to go, the last time I saw my father, my sister refused to come in the room. She stayed out in the hallway crying. And so I went out there and I said, "What are you crying about?" And of course, she gave me that, "What do you think, duh? Look," and I said, "If you're crying because you think you now know how little time Papa has left, when are you going to start crying for me?" And she gives me this look of like, what? I said, "Well, you're not crying for me because you think that I have more time left. But when I leave here, I'm going to get in a car and get on the freeway where people crash and die. I'm going to get into an airplane, which you refuse to get on because they fall out of the sky and crash and people die. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to successfully land in San Diego and then drive on even crazier freeways where people crash and die. And because I haven't been home for a week, I'm going to take my motorcycle out for a ride because I'm jonesing for a motorcycle ride where people crash and die." I said, it's very possible that I could be dead before Papa, but you're not crying for me. And she just sat there and looked at me, and I said, yes, we know that our time with Papa is short. Stop focusing on the body that's in there. I said, I don't see the body. The body is failing, but he's still in there. Go in there and he can still laugh. He still has his memories. His mind is still tack sharp. Utilize this remaining amount of time as wisely as possible. And make sure that when you say goodbye to people that mean a lot to you, that you do it in the right way. Because who knows what could happen tomorrow. Any input on that now that I've put a big wet blanket on top of all the fun we're having?
Yeah, it's kind of coming back around for me, at least. To what you were saying earlier about having a bad day. It's like, how are you spending your time? What are you deciding right now about what you're going to do and how you're going to focus and where you're going to put your attention? Like the same way as what you were describing just now, when you're having a bad day, like how are you actively spending your time? And how much of that time, could you be using to build some kind of positive memory or experience or have some kind of learning or new adventure or something that would, because ultimately you don't know how much time you have left, right?
Yeah.
So like how you like for me, it kind of brought it back around to what you were saying earlier.
Exactly. Thank you. Anybody else before we change gears into something happier? No? Well, then we're going to move on to Vegas Hypno Thoughts Live number 10. A couple of us were there. I think we all had a fairly good time. Had some pretty cool takeaways. And it's amazing how you can go to so many different classes. And sometimes the takeaway, the big takeaway is one little sentence. And one of those big takeaways for me was one of the presenters said they don't give homework to any of their clients. They give recommendations. We're not in school anymore. And very few people get all excited when they hear the word homework. I'm going to give you homework. Yay, okay, good. I got something I got to do. We give them recommendations because I'm not going to force you to do it. I would recommend that you do it because you want the change. You came here. And so it clicked with me that from now on, I'm going to call it recommendations. Here's a book that I recommend. Here's a protocol you can do on your own that I recommend. And it has a different feel even when I say it. Because I remember back when I was in school and heard the word homework. Okay, class, today we got some homework. Did you do your homework? We're going to grade your homework. the 13-year-old in me just had a shiver run down my spine and wanted to leave the room. So, recommendations. The other one, when I had it, squirrel took it, ran away with it. Let me grab my notes, which is why we write stuff down. Software. Notice Descript. Who's heard of Descript software?
Nope.
Who's played with it? Anybody?
I just heard about it literally yesterday.
What's that?
I just heard about it literally yesterday.
Literally yesterday, yes. Well, the guy that put on the talk that was about this, of course, we had 40 minutes to, cover this much information, which gives us that much time. And so I've got like 4 pages of notes from him. And then he finally gets to talking about this software called Descript, which transcribes and allows you to do all sorts of editing functions and everything on video. And everybody I talked to that was in his class was like, why didn't he spend the whole 40 freaking minutes on that software? Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. And yeah, he had like barely 10 minutes, if that, to cover it, and showed us a quick little bit of how he works it and what he uses it for. And if any of you are doing any type of promotions or anything on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that, this is definitely some software you want to look into. On top of that, for those of you that haven't had a lot of training in public speaking, and I noticed that I just put a number of fillers in while I was describing this on purpose. If you have a tendency to use a lot of fillers like, Descript will actually go through your entire recording and highlight every one of the fillers that you put in there and give you the option of batch removing all of the fillers as an option. Because sometimes you do the fillers on purpose, telling a story or something, and he was like, while she's waiting for him to make his choice, and you don't want to have that removed. And if you do choose to do a batch removal, it isn't a hard edit. It allows you to go back in and reselect and refill some of the ones that were removed. It also allows you to pick different voices if you want for certain playback transcriptions. For if you've seen any of the people on Instagram, where you see the subtitles, but it's read in a different voice. They just went out and did some type of video. They transcribed it, or they narrated it. Descript transcribed it for them, and then Descript changed the audio to a different voice to fit the format. And so he showed us 3 different voices on the same audio track that Descript had done all the words for. And like I say, a bunch of us in the class are like, what? Could you explain that a little bit more? And we're out of time. What? So yes, I'm added to my project list, which I've got whittled down to about 17 trillion projects now. That one's going right in there somewhere, somehow. Hopefully I can move it up fast enough for something, but that was another major takeaway from HTL. For the rest of you that were at HTL, do you have any takeaways you'd like to share with the peeps here?
Just from Hypnothought you're talking about?
Yep,
Or what you were talking about earlier?
all the above.
You know, I will say, I'm now hearing all my ums and ahs. I had a really good couple takeaways. One was from, we did something on EMDR, and I got so many things, because I thought it was just going to be about the technique, and that was awesome. But I got so many tips on what to put into my pre-talk, or what if you're doing conversational hypnosis that the other person doesn't even know you're doing. And then because I'd been primed for that, I think I went into every single setting looking for additional things. So just a reminder to really tighten up that pre-talk and how much could be accomplished in that pre-talk. I know a lot of people here prefer conversational anyway. And then just, I got a lot from Chase Hughes was talking a lot about if you act like you have permission to do stuff, people will assume you've always had it. So I've been playing around with that a lot, just acting like a different person and seeing if people actually treat me as if I've always been that person. And he's absolutely right. It absolutely works. So that's been fun.
Awesome.
Can you give an example? I definitely want to hear more about that. I thought when you had said it, you were talking very specifically about the pre-talk, but it seems like you're using it in other areas.
So you mean the pre-talk stuff then, not the chase stuff? Okay.
No, the chase stuff. Yeah.
Oh, the chase stuff?
Yeah.
Well, the very first time TJ actually saw this happen for me, I just decided to say, you know what, because they had put the seats way too close to each other. And so I just said, you know what, I'm going to pretend I'm in charge of this room. And as soon as everybody goes on break, I'm going to set up all the chairs how I want them to be and just see if anybody stops me or if anybody acts. And everybody just fell right in line. I was even telling people, hey, could you move those chairs over? We're just trying to get everybody just followed right along. It was pretty awesome.
I was there. I saw it. Of course, I was sitting this way, and so Holly couldn't see me because she was in the same row farther down. She didn't even know I was there.
Yeah, he's just not big enough. I need him to be a little taller for me to be able to see him.
That was, yeah, I sat the whole time, so yeah. Hiding under the cover of darkness.
But yeah, it was like I said, you know, I probably normally would have just ignored it even completely, but the fun part was when I started telling other people to do it. And they just they really did. They acted like I had the full authority to tell them what to do and just all got in line and started helping me out. It was pretty awesome.
I used to do that stuff with like street hypnosis and stuff as well. Like say you're walking past like a pub and some people are like sitting on the benches outside having a drink or whatever, and you're just kind of hanging around, and you know, someone mentions something about hypnosis and, oh, do you want to do a demo? And yeah, sure, would you hold this drink for me? Just set it down over there. You just start giving small tiny instructions that are really easy to fulfill. So it's like you're not even really asking for anything, but every time they do what you say, it's like you've got one bit of compliance. And by the time you've got 2 or 3 little bits of compliance in a row, suddenly you're leading without really having to pace. And it's kind of interesting because people just start following along. Same sort of principle, I think.
That's why we go.
That's awesome.
Were you there, Chet? Right?
Yeah, I didn't see you there and said hi to you
Yes,
because I was teasing
exactly.
you about Jason Lynette when you bend over to hug him, how awkward it looked.
Yes, that's why I was like, you were there? You want to share? What other than Lynette comes up to about here on me?
I did like Chase and what he had to say on a bunch of things. And kind of what Holly was saying about that, as far as once you just assume you take over the room. Yeah, this is the way it is. And you watch TV shows where they go in and they bluff their way in simply because they act like, oh yeah, I'm the authority here. Here it is. And nobody doubts them. Even some of the experiments that he talks about. And I've been wanting to do that on a few other things. We're just going to go in and command the room.
Yeah.
And I think at first it's just going to be a fun experiment just to see how it goes. But other than that, there's going to be certain times when you need to just to, hey, let's get things done and get it together and go on.
Two stories came to mind when you brought that up. One is one of the tests for FBI agents and CIA agents. They will tell them that they have to go into a hospital, into an emergency room or an operating room, and come back with a certain item. And because not everybody's allowed into those places, they have to be able to, on the spot, figure out how they're going to have the right outfit, right attitude, the right information to be able to walk in there without raising any suspicion to get these. And that's all part of identity management. And just like you say, once you've set up those permissions in your mind, you've got everything set, you can control the room, control the environment, control the situation.
Well, the other thing he talks about is lenses. And when we normally look at the people that, cut us off in traffic or just are absolute jerks, do we mirror them, or do we look at them and feel sorry for them that that's the way it is and don't let it affect our attitude? Just go on.
Yep. Kind of like that meme, that look on your face as you're driving past the stupid driver to see if they look as stupid as they're driving.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I recently kind of decided that every time someone does something like that, whether it's cut you up in traffic or do other sorts of, because I work in a train station on most days, and there's a lot of people who kind of push through the gates and they don't pay for their fare, and they kind of all sorts of antisocial behavior and things like that. And I noticed that it used to upset me a little bit because like it's almost like they were being disrespectful in like the area where I was in charge of making sure that people were safe as they passed through this spot, kind of thing, right? But soon I made this decision that like every time I see someone do something silly or stupid or antisocial or unacceptable, or what I would consider to be unacceptable, I'm just going to say to myself, see, I am better than them. See, I am better than them.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I must be better than that person because I would never do something like that. And it just, over the past, I don't know how many months it's been, it's kind of like, I mean, I didn't need a bigger ego already, but it's kind of like, I think I'm kind of like, whoa, I must be better than a lot of people because a lot of people are just kind of fucking around doing stupid shit, So that's like a thing. Maybe if it's useful, by all means, just use it as an opportunity to give yourself a suggestion, especially if like if someone cutting you off in traffic actually does piss you off, that's the perfect time to give a suggestion, because you have a heightened sense of emotion,
Yep.
elevated emotion at that point, regardless whether it's a positive emotion or not. A suggestion in that moment is going to stick better than at a time when you're just flat. So yeah.
And one that I've got for that I wish I could remember who gave this to me, because it has saved me from road rage for many years, is what if that person cut you off because your guardian angel put them in front of you to keep you to hold you back the 3 seconds you needed to be back, because the person was going to run the red light right in front of you. And if your guardian angel hadn't put that person in front of you, you would have been T-boned. And I started thinking of it that way, and somebody pulled me, get in front of me, I'm like, ah, all right, I don't know what that was all about, but thank you. I guess, I think. I'll just go with that. And it's helped me out many times. So that's another little reframe. And I saw the look on some of your faces when you realized Jason Lynette comes to about here on me. There is something that
Was he wearing like lifts or something? I'm surprised it's that high.
What's that?
That's I'm not going to repeat that.
Okay, well, it's on the recording. I'll play it back later. But I did tell him that he and I do have something in common. In fact, I've got something in common with a lot of people this height. Sun visors in automobiles are worthless. Short people pull down a visor and they still want a visor. I reach up and touch the visor and I can't see the road. Sun visors are worthless for anybody that's under 5'5", I think, and over 6'2". So if you're in the automotive industry doing designing work,
Why we have sunglasses, TJ?
yeah. But you look at the people that are getting to efficiently use sun visors, and you're like, wow, that's, it's kind of like the people that put their baseball cap on backwards and they're still looking like this, and be like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if you had a visor on that cap or something? Saying. But there are those people everywhere. So, and we are now 7 minutes past my hour of spilling my brains out. So it now becomes open mic, open platform. If anybody has any questions or things they would like to share or all the above, this is your time. What do we got? Not all at once.
I was curious as to people's thoughts on how, and I don't even know if this is group appropriate, but feel free to jump in. Self-worth and deserving. Whatever you got.
What's the context?
What, like, when you think of your self-worth and yourself and deserving, and how you grow in your life. I guess more of just like a personal growth. Whatever's sparking for anybody.
Come on, peeps.
Well, it seems like anything on that, most people automatically go to the negative. And so they go, do I deserve that? Am I worthy of it? You've got to look at yourself as far as, well, what are your good qualities? And what makes you think that you don't deserve it? And switch things around. I am worth it. I am worthy.
And I think what Elijah was doing is another great exercise for that. When you start seeing the negative in other people, you can remind yourself, like, yeah, I'm not like them. I'm better. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. That's better.
You know, just as I heard you say it now, I had another thought.
Squirrel.
What if after I say, like, oh, I must be better than them because I would never do that, I then realized, oh, I didn't react the way I used to react, so I must be improving on that level as well. Just like it's growing on multiple levels, not just the one I thought it was. Because if I'm no longer reacting the way I used to, and now doing things differently, then I must be becoming someone new with like a thicker skin or something, you know, who doesn't necessarily default to just reacting to stupidity the way I once did.
Well put.
When it comes to self-worth and deserving, it's a bit general. I didn't really hear a question in there. You know, I would go
Maybe
to,
vague.
yeah, I know, right? Not a fan of the Milton model, I see. So I would go to like what, you know, my immediate question is, well, what is it that you want? You know, what is it you want? You got to get clear on what you want in life, or in any given, even if life is too big a context, like in any given context, you know, what do you want for lunch? What do you want for dinner? What do you want to wear? What do you want to earn? What kind of stuff do you want to do in exchange for money to make a life? Like, what do you want? And then, like, answer it privately. That's very important, because if anyone else is listening or watching or hearing your answer, or has the potential to read your bit of paper where you wrote it down, then you will have an urge to edit the answer so that it becomes somewhat socially acceptable. So if you answer it privately, where no one else could know the answer, then you have the freedom to be as politically incorrect and selfish as you like when you answer the question, what do I really want? Right? And that's important, because then you get down to the truth, what you actually really, really want. And then once you have the answer to that and you know what you want, and that is a suggestion, you know what you want, then you can ask yourself, well, what's important about that? Why do I want that? And that's where you're going to get your fuel, right? Your fuel is going to be like, you know, your motivation or your desire is going to kind of amp up naturally when you start thinking about why you want what you want. And then, you know, think of all the idiots who have what they want and you don't, and you're like, well, why don't I deserve it? Come back to what Mr. Chetnosis here said. Why don't I deserve it? Of course I do. Right? And I would kind of go that way about it. You know? But if it's like, I don't know. I kind of started a new sentence with nowhere to go. So let's just retract that last bit.
No, what I was saying, as far as the I don't deserve it or anything else, it seems like typically people automatically go to the negative side instead of to the positive side. And those are the people that we see and help. You know, besides ourselves being human and falling into that. And then it's the reminder for us, oh yeah, what do I need to do? It's just from TJ's story about, you know what, I'm having a bad day and I'm okay with it. I think I'm going to still just have a bad day and it'll be fine. And I don't have to be upset or worried or anything else. It can just turn out the way it is and it'll all work.
Yeah, with that last point, I do agree. I think that once you start having feelings about how you're feeling, then it prolongs it, right? Like if you're having a bad day, you just kind of let the bad day rise and fall in its natural course. It's going to be gone just as quickly as it arrived. Whereas if you're having a bad day and like, oh my God, I'm having a bad day, I should know better. I'm a fucking hypnotist. I should do, it's going to end up persisting much longer, right? Because you give yourself a hard time for, well, no real good reason, which I think we're on a different subject now, but still, I do agree that you know, we have a tendency, most of us, and I'm just as guilty of it as everyone else, you know, I'm only human, right? To kind of throw logs on the fire and kind of pile on more and more. Oh, and that means I must not have learned properly in the hypnosis class because I should have been able to control my state better. And that means that it was a waste of money. And that means that it was, and I can end up ruining my state and turn a bad day into a bad week, you know?
Oh, I like how you use that metaphor of like throwing logs on the fire.
Yeah, that's really what it is, right? Whereas if you were to, I'm going to use this word, meditate on it, right? If you were to kind of just separate yourself from it for a moment and just be the consciousness observing what's happening. Oh, I'm having a bad day. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, you know, that's me there having a bad day, and just watch yourself do it. Remember this whole thing, David said, anything outside your awareness is outside your control. It does not mean that it can't control you. Like when you hit that autopilot and you start putting those extra logs on the fire, you're not paying attention to what it is you're doing that's putting those logs on the fire. Whereas if you can kind of dissociate from it and see yourself having a bad day without engaging in what it is you're doing, just observing, then, you know, psycho-emotional states don't really last longer than like 30 seconds. You know what I mean? They kind of rise and fall pretty quickly. It's only when you throw more logs on the fire that they can persist longer. A lot of people don't like it when I say that. Oh, I've been depressed for years. You keep reminding yourself why you're depressed. That's the real reason. If you could just separate it just for a moment, it would fall just as quickly as it rose. You know?
There's one little thing I learned to ask to people that said they had a bad day, and it was, so the whole day was bad, or what was bad about the day, and how long did it last? Well, so and so said something, and so I had a bad day. No, you had a bad 5 minutes, and you milked that thing for the whole. You're still milking it. Come on. You had a bad 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I admit, yesterday I had about a bad 20 minutes, and I milked it for a day because I was like, been a while since I've had a bad day, so whatever.
Yeah, you deserve to stew in your juices for a while sometimes.
Yeah.
Just don't do it too often because we'll get sick of you.
And it helped me have a little better appreciation for my good days. And like I say, it helped me look around the property and see a few projects that I've been kind of, and then all of a sudden I look at it when I'm in a bad day and I'm like, I got to get that done. So
how many people here, may I ask a question? How many people here believe that their thoughts influence like their existence and their life, their personality, their environment? How many people here actually believe that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you take time today to plan what kind of experience and day and life you're going to have today? Because if you didn't, like if you truly believed that the thoughts you have influence how you go through life, then you would not let a bad thought slip by. You know, if you truly believed it, right? You would be vigilant enough to kind of catch them in the moment when they happen. And then the reason most people don't like take a moment to plan the good thoughts they're going to have throughout the day and then remind themselves of those good thoughts is because they don't actually believe it. They say they believe it, but they don't actually. So it's kind of like the proof is in the pudding. Would you be willing to prove to me, or to yourself even, forget me, I'm not important, that you actually do believe that your thoughts can influence your reality by becoming more vigilant of the kind of thoughts that you're having.
Okay, I think I'm pretty sure I'm following you here. Yes, I do believe that your thoughts create your experience, and I do set the intention. I do not think it's possible to monitor every single possible thought, because at least for me, I recognize that I am human and a few things do get by. But I do like what Abraham Hicks says, that's when you notice your emotions. So
Right.
when I do notice my emotions and I'm like, okay, well, wait, how did I get over here? It's kind of like the rope with knots, and you're like going backwards, going, okay, well, wait, what happened? Where did I go? And finding your way back to going that way.
Good.
I can't monitor every single thought.
Again, we're not perfect. And like I said before, I'm not perfect, and I'm definitely working on it myself, as well. Yeah, it's one of those, it's again, like kind of like meditation, right? The first time you sit down and try, maybe you can go about 10 seconds before you have a thought, right? And then maybe if you kind of bring yourself back from that thought and you try again, and maybe this time you go 12 seconds before your mind wanders off. But at some point, if you keep practicing, you're gonna, be able to meditate for half an hour or an hour or whatever else. You know what I mean? It's practice. Yeah.
Go ahead, Francine.
I found that if I don't watch my thought like a hawk, I go down like a lead stone.
Oh.
So it's much better for me just to watch it and try and notice as quickly as possible, because I have the tools to change it very quickly. And what I actually do, I actually go further than that. Even if I try and, when things happening during the day, it's like, oh, I am so lucky. Because if that wouldn't have happened, maybe something much worse, like TJ said earlier, but in a slightly different concept, not when I'm driving, but all the time. So it's like I'm feeling grateful and thankful for everything I have, which makes it so much nicer. It's just totally changing. So from really bad, I went to okay, and from okay, I can go to really, really good. I'd rather have that. Much more fun.
That's an awesome habit. That's an awesome habit to have. To kind of catch your thoughts and remind yourself of good things. That's really cool.
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice, Elijah. I don't always manage, yes, I'm human. However, I've noticed that recently I'm getting much better at it and much quicker. And it's just such a nice difference.
I have a question, Francine. Francine, when you're doing that, do you find that you're talking to yourself out loud?
Sometimes, not necessarily all the time. What's that thing I'm doing again? What's it called? IFS. Yes, IFS, internal family systems. So yes, I do talk to myself and to all my inner personalities. I have like a conversation going with them. Just so people are aware, I have severe mental illnesses. Well, they reckon I have. I no longer know. I think I'm feeling much better. So, however, yeah, I speak to all my internal personalities. I know that sounds strange. However, for me, it works. And I wake up in the morning incredibly depressed many, many times. And I'm able to, not always, but let's say 80% of the time at the moment, I'm able to shift it to okay. I'm from okay to good. But then, yeah, the slightest thing will get me back down. But yeah, so I have to watch it all the time. I have to be like a hawk. Yeah, and I do talk to myself a lot.
Oh.
I have kind of I've probably said all this before, but just, thinking about self-worth and deservingness. So a couple things pop into my head. First of all, if you were say your boss said, you know what, we're out of printing paper, and I'm going to give you a credit card to go to the store and go buy printing paper for the office. If you went to the store, would you feel guilty that you had the money or access to the money to buy the printing paper? Because it's not for you, it's you're being given the tools you need to do your job. Most people would not feel guilty about that, would not feel like, oh, I don't deserve this. That wouldn't even be in their mind. They're just doing a job, right? So one thing I think a lot is when we're on our golden path, first of all, nobody does deserve it. But the way we earn it, deserve it, whatever, the universe is giving us the tools we need to fulfill our mission. And if we refuse to accept those tools, we won't be able to fulfill our mission. And that can even be in ways that are unexpected. So like, for instance, you need to be happy and healthy and whole. You need to be having fun. You need to have time to yourself in order to be an adequate person to fulfill your mission. So even if you're not, in this exact moment doing what you need to do, if you're helping yourself stay healthy, if you're helping yourself stay happy, if you're making life worth living, that's part of you doing what you are meant to do. And that is the universe giving you the tools you need to do your golden path. And to not accept them is actually the mean thing, because you are being offered this gift that you need, that you want, that's been specifically tailored for you. And you're choosing not to accept it. And when you choose not to accept it, it means you don't fulfill your golden path and everybody is worse off. So that's one way to think about it. As far as the humility thing, because I think another problem is we're always comparing ourselves. So I think a lot of people think humility is, I'm going to beat myself up. I'm going to always say I'm less than I think I am. But I believe that's actually pride. When we look at, you're supposed to be pride and humility. And like I said, I've probably shared this before, but the way I've always seen humility is saying, so let's look at IQs, for example. There's somebody out there that has an IQ of 70. There's somebody out there in the world that has an IQ of, let's say, 180. Those sound like really far differences, right? If you look and you zoom in on it and you compare it. But if you, whatever your belief system, whether it's God or just even the theoretical, if there was somebody out there that knew everything there is that it's possible to know, what would their IQ be? We're probably talking like what, 100, let's just say it's 100,000. If you put on the graph an IQ of 70 and an IQ of 180, when you're zoomed in, they look far apart. But when you zoom out so that you can see that 10,000, they're not different. There's really no significant, they're going to look like they're in the exact same spot as each other. And so, it's okay to check in and say, am I doing better? Am I improving? If you're comparing yourself to yourself, it's for useful, for growing, that's fine. But as soon as we're talking about what matters, having a higher IQ does not make you a better person. And that's the other thing too. Why do you have the higher IQ? Oh, I was born with a better support system. I was born with better genetics. I didn't do anything to deserve that. It's just what I was born with. So it's okay to give yourself credit for the gifts you were given from God or from the universe or however you look at that, and be thankful for them, be grateful for them, and own them and use them and acknowledge them when it's useful. As long as you're not at any point saying, and that makes me better than the people around me. Because, especially if you compare your weaknesses to somebody else's strengths, you'll always feel crappy about yourself. If you're always comparing your strengths to everybody else's weaknesses, you're always going to feel superior. But if you say, you know what, every one of us has a different goal, and that's why we've been given different gifts. And me being good and owning my gifts is actually good for everybody. As long as that's the mindset, I think we're so afraid we're going to jump into that, oh, I'm better than everybody else mindset. But I think that actually calling ourselves worse makes us more likely to be the other way around, that we're actually more likely to have to feel like I'm better because I thought I was worse. So anyway, I know, very long, and I probably said a lot of that before, but that's just my take.
Elijah?
I was clapping.
Oh, okay. I wanted to add a little something to that. One of the classes that I attended, we did some improv stuff. And one of the improv games was clams are good because, and you would just go out into, we're all standing in a circle, and you would start off with clams are good because, and come up with whatever, it didn't even have to make sense. And then you would look at somebody from the group and say, and you're great because, and then you would finish with, and I'm great because. And what we all noticed was it was so easy, of course, coming up with why clams are great. Even if you hate clams, you can come up with some silly, what I think I said, clams are great because they build their own house and take it with them. And it was really easy to say something great about somebody else, even if they were a stranger. You're great because you dressed really fashionable today. But we all admitted that when it came to, and I'm great because, and here we had to profess it publicly in front of friends and strangers, it felt really weird. Because it's so easy for us to be down on ourselves, and we're told, don't be boastful and don't da 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 da. But sometimes it's okay. The other thing I like to bring up to a lot of people is, when's the last time you spoiled yourself? When's the last time you went and got a massage? Being a former photographer, I like to ask people, when's the last time you had a professional photo shoot done? And I love the look on people's faces, like, oh, dear, I want a picture. And I'm like, sometimes we get so used to seeing what we look like that we forget how people see us. And having a professional photo shoot allows us to actually see our image in a really good way. And it doesn't mean you have to let anybody else see it. It's just another way to see what people see from the outside. And to understand that we all be really good looking. Yes. And that somebody appreciates seeing us coming through the door, down the hallway, on Zoom, liking the smile, even when our teeth aren't perfect, or our whatever. You poor ladies with your girl goggles that anytime you see an image of yourself, your eyes turn into electron microscopes and you see things that nobody else has seen. Well, I've got this one little crinkle right here. Where? What? Really? What?
Come away from the window. We'll never sell the house. That was a joke.
I've had to tell this story a couple of times. When I had my photography studio, I had one young lady accuse me of photoshopping freckles on her face. I'm like, A, that takes a lot of time. B, I don't have that much time. C, why the hell would I put extra freckles on your face? That never. No, I had to literally walk her into the changing room with the nice big mirror, lots of heavy lighting, and I'm like, see this one? It's right there. And this, yeah, that's this one. And they're all accounted for. There's none on this picture that aren't like where they are. Girl goggles. You got to give us guys.
You got to say something.
Leniency. We don't.
Right.
What's
you
that?
Say something that. So you got to say something that will throw her off, right? It's like, oh, why if someone accused me of photoshopping freckles onto them, I said, why would I spend my time making you look cuter than you are?
Yeah,
like you got to kind of like. it's the perfect moment to kind of defend yourself and say something that's a compliment in anger, right?
Well, if I'd have been,
It kind of juxtaposes everything together, and it's like it kind of throws people like, wait, what? You know?
she caught me so off guard. It took me a bit to
you
just
were in a trance. You could put her in a trance. TJ, there can only be one hypnotist. You know?
Yeah, that was when I was only a photographer. But yeah, I was so not ready for that. I've heard lots of arguments, lots of things, but that was not in my top 100. So, anywho, we got 25 minis left. What else we got? What else can you guys toss on the table?
Well, if nobody else is going, I'll bring up, I've been talking to DJ about this just before the call, but just what techniques do each of you use? You know, as empaths, when we meet new people, it could be rather exhausting, especially establishing rapport, and especially if they happen to be having a bad day. What techniques do each of you use to make that an energizing experience more than a draining experience?
Can you ask it again?
So when you're meeting new people,
Uh-huh.
What techniques do you use to make that an energizing experience for you, when it can easily become an energy draining experience because we're the kinds of people who really like to give, shall we say? So find that you give in a way that energizes you rather than exhaust you.
Oh, okay. So it's not your energy. That's the thing. You don't you almost never give your own energy ever. It's almost like it's channeled, like it goes through you, or you could have a construct that provides it. So it's not yours. It would be like okay. So I use rain clouds, right? I've been using rain clouds for years. I have a whole bunch of them. They're all different colors, right? And so I can make it rain different colors of like droplets of energy on top of any given situation or any given person or any given interaction, depending on how I want to influence it, or how I would not, because again, that's inaccurate way of saying it. It's not how I'm influencing it, how I want it to be influenced, because it's not me as influencing it, because it's not my energy, right? So let's say you got someone who's having a really shitty day, and you think, oh, okay, I'll put my purple cloud on. My purple cloud appears, and my purple cloud starts raining, and we have the purple energy going on, and obviously inside of me, I know what the purple energy means, right? And so, and you can obviously create your own meanings for all of those constructs. You don't need to borrow mine. You can have your own. And yeah, it just kind of works really well for me, because it's not my energy that's being put into it. It's just coming from the cloud. That's kind of how I do it. I've been using clouds
for sharing.
years. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the cool thing about clouds is you can give them as gifts, because people don't know. You'll be like, oh, that person needs good energy today. I'm just going to give them the golden cloud just to follow them for the rest of the day, and just kind of set one loose on them. And that cloud will follow them and rain on them positive energy as much as they want or as much as they need. It's got nothing to do with me. I just set the intention, and it will only rain if it's beneficial for the recipient for it to rain. It's got nothing to do with my judgment whether or not I think they need to rain, right? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Linda?
It was pointed out to me recently, and I had never realized before, that I'm actually very good at bringing out people's passions. And I had to stop and think about that for a while. And then I realized that when people are experiencing their passion, they're bright and joyful and excited and pleasant to be around. And I realized that what I was most likely doing, and I'm not really sure yet, because it's kind of new, I'll accept that it's true. I can see it happening. But I think the reason I'm doing it is because then I like to be around them. So what I do is I move them into their passion, and I get to experience their passion vicariously. And it makes my day an awful lot nicer.
Awesome. I love both of those. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more reason to get really good at the trifecta. Echo Talk, 3 magic question, values and criteria, because it's really easy to get people happy and smiley.
Yeah, I am now the queen of Echo Talk.
What?
I think I was Echo Talking the dog yesterday.
Yeah, I've done it. It's a riot. They get all excited. Funny how it works.
And of course, Holly, you know, be aware of where your shoulders are, where your chin is. Like, just mind your physiology. It helps a lot more. Like, you know, 2 millimeters will change your whole day. You know.
No, it's a good reminder. Thank you.
I missed the question. I'm sorry. I came in with the clouds, of which I know Elijah does send them.
Oh, I was asking what strategies people use when you meet new people to make sure, especially if they happen to be having a bad day, to make sure that your interaction with them energizes not just them, but energizes you as well, rather than sapping your energy and being overwhelming.
That's a really good one. I like that question.
You want to review what I brought up, Holly?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
You want to review what I brought up?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. You say it so well. I'm not going to do justice to it. You are saying it.
I just wanted to see your face. You're like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's not what I meant. One of the things that I brought up to her was there was a time when she didn't know any of us, including me. And if you anticipate that the person is going to be a drain, it's real easy to go into the, oh God, new person, what's going to be wrong with them? Or you can look at, you know, how many people do you know that they don't know any strangers? They just know friends they haven't met yet. And they'll walk right up to anybody. Hey, how you doing? Da 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 da. And if nothing else, you know, like my wife will verify, I have 0 problems talking to anybody. And part of it is because my intention is to leave everybody better than when I found them. I don't go in with the intention of oh my God, you know, do I need to know them, or are they going to try to get to know me? Don't care. Just want to chat with them and see if I can get them to laugh and giggle and have a better day. And if they turn into a friend, you know, like one of my best friends in Cali right now, met him through Craigslist, and Tina hates it every time I say that, but I needed a stereo for my car. Showed up, and instead of just doing a transaction of, hey, nice stereo, here's the money, thanks, catch you later, about it out, and out the door I go. Started chatting. Found out we had a lot in common. And he showed up at my wedding. So if you can flip it around and think of everybody out there that, you know, who's your next potential best friend, or who can you potentially, like Linda brought up, who can you practice on bringing out their passion and change their day, even if it's the slightest increment better. I mean, if they're already having an amazing day, it's really easy to chat with them. If they're having a shit day, it's not that hard knowing what we know to allow them to have a little better day. And go into each of those transactions or transition, whatever you want to call it, with strangers, making that your easiest way of looking at it. Elijah?
Yeah, it just reminded me something I heard Melissa Tears say. She was talking about a lesson she learned from John Overdurf, and it was the lesson. I'm going to kind of skip most of it because, you know, but like the lesson ultimately is that the way you see the person in front of you is the best that they can be in your presence. So if they're already annoying because they're complaining too much, then you've kind of sealed their fate by having decided that inside of yourself. And they can't improve beyond that as long as you see them that way. Right? Now, Melissa was telling this story about how she had this client who had a daughter who was just like crazy misbehaving, you know, like she would scream bloody murder in the supermarket and throw things from the shelf onto the floor and just have like a massive tantrum and stuff. And she says to Melissa in the session that, oh, but then her grandmother comes over and she's a little angel because she can't do anything wrong in front of her. Right? And it's exactly that. It's the way you see someone is the best that they can be in your presence, right? And that was proven by it was also proven by the experiment they did, you know, with the teacher, and they told the teacher that one kid was had special needs and another kid was gifted in the class. Even though both the kids were average, they lied to the teacher, and by the end of the school year, the one that the teacher thought was gifted finished top of the class, and the one that they thought had special needs finished bottom of the class, because the teacher began to treat them differently because of what they thought they believed about the person, right? And so that's the whole, what does David call it, TJ? Acceptance, rejection, projection, connection, the magic mirror thing. That's yes. What it is, right? Is the way you see, like, when, man, should I do the whole, do I do the whole story from the, do I do the whole story? The university, okay, the University of Mississippi, bunch of social psychologists have way too much funding money and nothing to do. They're kind of bored, right? So they design an experiment. They get a bunch of pictures of women and men, and they have a bunch of resumes, right? And then they randomly assign a picture to a resume, which is, you know, not true. Like, this person is not that person, right? And then they give, let's say it was a picture of a woman and a resume. They give it to some random dude, and they're like, this woman is going to call you and you're going to interview her over the phone. And the woman who calls on the phone is not the woman in the picture, nor is it her resume. It's a third person who's completely, like, not attached to what this person thinks he's talking to, or who this person thinks he's talking to, right? And so he's asking her various questions, and he is asked to judge her on things like abstract things like sense of humor, social awareness, and like how quickly she might make friends, or, you know, how adept she is at learning, or, you know, all these kind of things that you can't really measure, but just like form an opinion about her, right? So they did this, and they did this both ways. They did this with women interviewing men, men interviewing women, right? Then what they did was they took the recording of that phone call and edited it so that nothing of the man, the interviewer, nothing of the interviewer remained. And all that was left was her answers to the questions. And they then played those answers to an independent panel who had nothing, they had no knowledge of the experiment or what's happened at all. All they were told, here is a sheet of paper. These are the questions this woman was asked, and you're going to hear her responses on the tape. You don't hear the man, you don't know about the resume, you don't know about the photo, you don't know nothing. All you do is you have this list of questions on a piece of paper and you hear through audio her responses. And they were asked to rate the woman on the same criteria that the interviewer was. And it was a 98.6% match, right? Which means something in the way that he thought he saw her caused her to take on those behaviors to the extent that an independent observer could see her that way as well, the way he was seeing her. So we are influencing the people around us all the time by the way we judge them, whether we know it or not. And so the way you see someone, coming back to where I started, the way you see someone is the best they can be in your presence. So if you meet someone new and they have a bad attitude or they're in a bad state, if you judge them negatively, you've ruined it from the start. Whereas if you think to yourself, wow, this is a great hypnotic subject, I bet they go into trance really well, here's an opportunity to find their good side, and you get excited about it, you will change their fate in that moment, whether you realize you're doing it or not. That's the magic mirror.
And I've never done that before.
Right? That's the magic mirror.
You know, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. I had this other thought pop into my head too. Just kind of ties with everything everybody was saying, but how different would the world be if, and you could, you know, what your religious beliefs are, if you believe there was a life before this and you knew people before, or just that time's an illusion, and so somebody you will know well in the future. But I've been watching a lot of those, you know, welcoming soldiers home from war videos, or, you know, like pets welcoming them home or their kids welcoming home. What if we treated everybody we met with that same level of excitement to meet them? Just a thought that popped into my head, but thank you so much.
Yes, Linda.
I have a question for Elijah.
Hello.
Yeah. So, all right. I got I've never heard of this experiment before, and I got it. One guy had inaccurate information, and one guy, whether the guys or girls, whoever, and one guy has no information, and they both judged exactly the same. Who's to say they're not both judging accurately?
They are judging accurately. However, the reason they're judging accurately is because the person who's being judged has taken on the behaviors of the observer, has taken on the behaviors that the observer is expecting, rather.
I don't see that follows, because person number two, now I don't see how you can assume that from that study. That doesn't follow logically.
Well, how else do you explain the match in the ratings of the people, of the interviewee?
We get one person with preconceived notions and one person without preconceived notions, and they're both judging the same.
But the person that they're judging as the same is not the person they think it is.
Yes.
Well, only one person thinks it's somebody, the other person doesn't.
No, but it's neither who the person A or person B. It's a completely different person C. The actual person who's answering the questions is not the person in the photo, nor the resume.
I got that. So my point is, since one person has supposedly has preconceived notions, and one person does not have preconceived notions, and they both judge the same, what makes you think preconceived notions has anything to do with the judgment?
Because the person who's judged, okay, so the person who's the first person who has the preconceived notions, right,
Right. Yep.
is judging the person that they think is calling,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
TJ, help me out here. You know this experiment as well. You were there when David told us this.
Yeah.
Help me out here. How does it work?
The part of it is being it was a blind interview, the interviewer looking at what he thought was this attractive person, and they didn't do it with just one person or just one picture and resume. The interviewer had to do multiple interviews, and so they had some resumes that were
That's it. Yeah. So you have various levels of intelligence, various levels of attractiveness.
Yeah, but
right.
The picture. Yeah. So you had a below average resume with an attractive picture. You had a below average with a non-attractive picture. Then you had a high level resume, two high level resumes, attractive and unattractive, and he had to interview all four of them. In doing so, he's doing a combination of all these different assessments and prejudgments and whatever you want to call it. What he didn't understand was when they removed his voice and only played back the voice tracks of the people that were being interviewed, the people that heard the voice tracks judged the same way without seeing the pictures or the resumes. What do you think about this person?
Yeah, I totally got that.
And and the answers that the guy is giving is biased toward, like, it's biased towards attractiveness always.
Yeah, the way he was,
he'll rate your sense of humor or your social adeptness higher on the attractive people first, and then second priority goes to the intelligent people, and then third to the lesser intelligent people, and the least attractive people always had the lowest score.
So I think that what you're saying,
but the second person did not have the information,
right,
in terms of the being able to judge the attractiveness or the intelligence, because they didn't have the information, and yet they still came up with the same scores.
And the other part about the interview is the person being interviewed was not privy to what the interviewer had seen.
Well, no, of course not.
Yeah, so they weren't weighted as to, well, I'm the dumb attractive one, or they just knew that this person was interviewing them, but the interaction between the two was weighted as such that the people that only heard their responses without understanding the basis of the experiment were able to pick up on the nuances in the responses when they only heard the responses. And what we got out of that is our interpretation of the person we're dealing with and the energies that we put out will affect a person's responses to us simply by our first perception of them.
I understand what you're saying, and I have to say I disagree, and I think it's flawed.
Okay.
I don't think it logically follows. I don't think they proved it. They would have to then go back and take that exact same person and run it through other interviewers and judges.
Oh, they did. Yeah, it wasn't one set; it was multiple, and the respondent was interviewed as all four, as attractive, dumb, non-attractive, dumb. The one person got interviewed by different people on all of those bases.
Right.
And even though it was the same person, the people that heard the tracks
Right.
came up
Rated
with
them,
this. Yeah, and
rated them differently.
yes, and the person being interviewed had no idea what information the interviewer had
Mhm.
on it. Didn't
Sure.
know, didn't understand the experiment at all. They just knew that they were going to get called, they were going to be asked to do an interview.
Right.
I'm glad that we brought this up because I want to remind it to my to Tina, because she does a lot of interviews, and obviously in this day and age they're not allowed to have pictures attached anymore. But there's still enough information, and of course in this highly everybody needs to be included fairness deal, what they're finding is a lot of cities no longer, they're filling out an agenda. We have to have a female, we have to have a male, we have to have this race, this race, this race. It's no longer about who is the best applicant. If we take all the best applicants and they all turn out to be a certain color and a certain gender, we're going to be attacked. So we now no longer care about how well they fill out, how good of a match they are. We care how they look in the basket. Serious. And it's getting pretty bad because I know of a number of cities who have turned down exceptional applicants because they already had too many of that type of person in the basket. So they had to go to the number 3, number 4, number 5 applicant so that they could put a certain person in the basket to satisfy. So, and Elijah found David's explanation of it. So hopefully that'll be a little better than our quick descript of it. And that brings us past the 8 o'clock hour. Hopefully we closed up enough loops and put enough squirrels to rest for this one. So glad to be back here with you guys. It's kind of funny, a week off, and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? And here we are. So, with that being said, for those of you that are watching the recording and were able to hang out all the way through, thank you very much. Hopefully you've
Like, comment,
subscribed.
subscribe, share.
What's that?
Like, comment, subscribe, share.
Yes, what he said. And comment, please. Tell your friends. And I will hopefully see you in 7. Have a fantabulous week. Love you and appreciate you all. Now go out and be nice to people.
Night, everybody.